To Save a Hobbit by Random Plot Bunny. Chapter 15. Bilbo caught his breath as he looked out at the sea of flowers that had once been the floor, and then up at the sheepish dragon standing in wait of his reaction in the middle of the biggest pile of them. Smog! How? His words ran dry as once more took in the sight before him. You seemed to enjoy the first flower I gave you so much that I decided to make you more. Smog's piercing eyes looked over at the mess of flowers strewn about the room before landing once more on Bilbo. I think I used too many seeds. Bilbo couldn't contain himself anymore and leapt into Smog's arm while kissing him soundly. No one had ever done anything remotely like this for him before, and hardly noticed as they overbalanced and ended up buried as the heap of flowers around his dragon came tumbling down. You are so amazing. I don't think I can ever fully express just how overwhelmed I really am. As he began running his hands through Smog's thick hair, Bilbo realized how still his dragon had gone. Smog, is everything alright? Is it the kissing? I can stop if you like. Pushing away from his position on Smog's chest in embarrassment, he had been so sure about the dragon's intentions, and it hurt to be proven wrong. He was stopped as Smog finally moved to wrap his arms around his small waist. So that was kissing, was it? I was wondering what it would be like. Bilbo felt a surge of renewed hope flood through him at that. Smog wasn't rejecting him at all. He was just inexperienced. A sudden commotion had them lifting their heads just in time to see Langeth dragging the Elven King out of the halls. But they quickly ducked down again before they could be spotted and drawn into conversation. So, would you mind kissing me again? I think I will need lots of practice to become as good at it as you are. Giggling at that, Bilbo was all too happy to comply. Silly dragon, he murmured, gaining a deep chuckle from the larger male just before he sealed their lips together once more. This was practice that they each would be all too happy to keep at for a long while. The ring, the one ring, unraveled itself from its confining cloth just long enough to glint brightly in the light of its birthing fires, and then it was gone, for good. Did you feel that? Bilbo asked, looking up from his packing and off to the south, though he didn't know that that was the direction he looked as they were still inside the mountain, as that seemed to be where the strange feeling had come from. I felt nothing. Are you all right? His companion asked from his lounging position on the floor, great wings stretching in anticipation of the flight soon to come. Oh, fine. Just... Bilbo patted at his waistcoat pocket absently, a confused look on his face. It was pure evil. It had to be destroyed, Smog said gently, comfortingly, as he now had a good idea as to what had happened. I know, but... Well, this isn't getting the packing done, and we do want to be off before nightfall. Smog let the matter drop. His hobbit would talk to him about it when he was ready. Bilbo Baggins! You miserable old hobbits! How dare you show your face back here and deprive me and my husband of our well-earned inheritance! Bilbo set down his half-finished tea and went to his door. He had known Lobelia would show up sooner rather than later. She always did. But he had hoped it would take longer than just a few short hours after his return. Lobelia! What an altogether unexpected surprise. I'd invite you in for tea, but as you know, I have only just returned and have not had time to restart my pantry. Bilbo began solicitously, only to have the umbrella-wielding woman on his front doorstep go on the immediate attack. It's not your pantry anymore! It rightfully belongs to my husband, your cousin, Otho! No, Bilbo said calmly, even as he looked at the growing crowd outside his gate. They had all come to see the free show, and he was glad of it as he wanted everyone to hear what he had to say to his cousin. He didn't want half-truths and lies getting around and making him out to be the bad guy here. That was what usually happened whenever Lobelia was involved. What? I said no. Have you gone deaf from all your own screeching? Lobelia spluttered at that, earning chortles from many in the watching crowd. I left my home, the home you have been attempting to steal by contesting my will all the time that I was away, and all my possessions save a few to my best cousin and good friend, Drogo Baggins. You have no right to anything within these walls, and I would gladly thank you to uninvite yourself to tea for the rest of our days. Lobelia was red-faced now and spitting mad. She even went so far as to lift her gaudy umbrella in anger, much to the horror of several in the ever-growing crowd, before a towering figure joined Bilbo in the doorway and leveled her with a very hostile stare. Smog, you remember me telling you about my cousin Lobelia, don't you? The one who tries to steal your mother's silver tea set. Yes. If anything, the tall man's stare became even more sharp, and Lobelia found herself backing away involuntarily. Well, this is her. Lobelia, I'd like to introduce you to my partner and, hopefully, one day, husband, Smog, the last of the great dragons. Smog gave a slight nod, but Lobelia didn't see it, as she had already hiked up her skirts and fled! Much to everyone's amusement, there was no way she was going to stand around and become dragon food. It was some time later when Bilbo managed to close his door again. It seemed everyone in Hobbiton had wanted to stop by and say hello, just so that they could say that they had. And he gratefully collapsed back into his long-vacated chair. It had been so good of Drogo to give him back Baggend, though considering he had never had a chance to move in because of Lobelia throwing her self-entitled weight around and demanding things that weren't ever hers to begin with, had helped the decision along. And the long-absent Master of Baggend was happy to once more be able to relax in comfort. Bilbo, I have found the most interesting thing while you were chatting with those unimportant people. Sliding from his chair once more, Bilbo went to have a look at this discovery that Smog had made. Really now, he had already discovered Bilbo's pots and pans, his linen closet, and his feather bed. What more could the dragon, who he knew had never been in a man-sized body before, and so had never seen these things or handled these things before now, had uncovered? That's a book, Smog. Yes, I know that. But this one has pictures of flowers in it and tells about their meanings and uses. And that one there has maps! Shaking his head over Smog's childish delight at learning new things, Bilbo was just glad that he had taken to hoarding knowledge in place of treasure now, and settled down to go through his library one book at a time with his dragon. Thorin sat at his desk signing all the papers that Balin said needed a signature and reading all the reports Balin said he needed to read himself. With a sigh, the king under the mountain thought, and not for the first time, that the only reason that Balin was not himself the king was because he had been too smart to want the job. Rubbing his eyes tiredly, the king picked up the housing report. The mountain was almost completely restored now since it hadn't been too badly damaged in the first place, and would soon be able to fully house all of the dwarves who wanted to live there again. When a welcome distraction came along in the form of his nephew, Gilly. Uncle Thorin! The youth cried as he ran into the room. Yes, Gilly, what is it? Waving a piece of paper around his head, the young Runen almost couldn't answer in his excitement. It's Bilbo! He's getting married and we're all invited! Not letting his dismay at those words show, Thorin mustered a smile and clapped his nephew on the shoulder. That is excellent news. We will be sure to attend. Beaming like mad, Keely took off to inform everyone else of this wonderful news, never looking back or seeing Thorin's face fall into a dismayed frown. Bilbo was getting married, and he would need to attend for 3 reasons. To show his support of his friend, to prove that Smog was no longer a threat to a dwarven kind and out to steal their gold again, and to let Bilbo know that he always had a place in Erebor to call home if he ever needed it. Perking up at the thought of Bilbo coming to live in Erebor once his marriage to the dragon failed, Thorin attacked his paperwork with a new passion. Just thinking about how long it would take for Bilbo to come running to him for solace made him smile. After all, how long could one little hobbit stand to live with a dragon anyway?